Rob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. From Flushing Meadows, echoes bounce off the bat. Rob calls, take the mic, snaps like a thunderclap. Home runs over bridges, no gaps in the story. Mets rise, reclaiming the glory. 7 the city, blue and orange army swarm. Summer vibe electric, love in every form. From Biggie's blocks to Flushing's heartbeat, our anthem loud, no retreat. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. The apple pops in the outfield, city of dreams. Rob's voice over static, Mets on every stream. White lines mapped out the future, vividly. From shade to city, the journey's never gimmicky.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome to a special edition of Mets Talk Live here. Kyle Tucker Watch Day 2, as we are all hearing reports that the decision could come today, and that is why we're here for Day 2 of the Kyle Tucker Watch. Welcome to the channel, guys. Welcome to the show. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on X, make sure you head over to the channel and subscribe to the channel as well. And we'll get started, guys, because this can be a 3-hour show, 4-hour show, 5-hour show. When the news comes out that Kyle Tucker is signing with a team, Mets, Blue Jays, Dodgers, somebody else, we will stay on the live stream. We'll do a little intro of the breaking news, and then we'll get right into the breaking news of the contract, what team he's on, and if I will be happy or very upset during the live stream. So we have a lot to talk about today, as there has been more news since the last time we spoke last night in regards to what's going on with the Blue Jays, with the Mets, and with the Dodgers. So it has been confirmed by Passan, by Heyman, that the Blue Jays are willing to go to 10 years on their deal. Now, it is kind of weird because let's say they do have a 7-8 year deal on the table. Tucker still didn't sign that deal. You know, talking about a long-term deal is probably 6 or 7 years, maybe 7 or 8 years. He didn't sign that deal. I know ex-teammates are talking about, I know Heyman said that ex-teammates are saying that he wants to be a Blue Jay. Well, if he wanted to be a Blue Jay, why didn't he take a 7 or 8 year deal with that he already had? He knows the Mets and the Dodgers aren't going nowhere near that number years-wise. So I think that's a lot of smoke, to be quite honest with you. I think he would have been a Blue Jay already, and maybe he plays his cards exactly right, and the Blue Jays get desperate to the point where they will offer the 10th year, and it's very hard for anybody to say no. I don't care if you want to be with that team or not, to decline 10 years and take a shorter-term deal. So the Mets are in a tough spot. The Dodgers are not really in a tough spot because they are World Series champions. They're perfectly fine without Kyle Tucker. But the Mets are in a rough spot right now. They're in a bad spot right now because we know they're not going a long-term deal for Kyle Tucker. They're apparently okay if they don't land Kyle Tucker. You know, it seems like they're willing to lose him. So, and Brad, that is what we're going to talk about when it comes to this as well. You know, will the Mets up their offer to 5 years, $250? Could they do it? Now, we know that if David Stearns was the only one in the room, this wouldn't be a conversation. But because Steve Cohen is in the negotiations and he's definitely involved, I'm not going to put it past Steve Cohen to offer that 5th year. And that is why I have somewhat confidence that Kyle Tucker can still be a Met. Because the thing with the Kyle Tucker situation with the Blue Jays is that if they don't get Kyle Tucker, let's say he goes to the Mets or the Dodgers, the Blue Jays can always pivot to their well-known player in Bo Bichette. because they're either going to get Bichette or Tucker, in my opinion. So they have other options. The Mets aren't getting Bo Bichette. We have 42 infielders on this roster. So there's really nothing you can do if you're the Mets, because you're really looking at much lesser of a player if you don't land Kyle Tucker. I don't think the Mets are going to get Cody Bellinger, as I said yesterday. You know, you're looking at Hayes, you're looking at Bader, you're looking at Donovan, you know, from St. Louis, a possible trade, maybe Luis Robert Jr. I mean, that is all less. That is a lesser player than what you were going for. And that is the problem that I have right now, is the fact that the Mets need to do everything they can to land him. And again, the long-term deal isn't happening. 5 years, I guess you consider it a long-term deal, but are the Mets willing to go a fifth year? They already up there offered a fourth year. Go figure. Once Steve Cohen's walked into these negotiations, and it's been reported that he's there in these negotiations, it went up to a fourth year. Because, you know, David Stearns is crying in the corner. If anything over 3 years, he's going to cry in the corner. So, you know, honestly, I've gotten killed on X from multiple content creators, from multiple people. They're like, oh, you keep on killing Stearns. What has Stearns done? Can we figure this out as a fan base? David Stearns has done nothing. This team missed the playoffs last year because of him. Because he half-assed the rotation. Because he did a terrible job at the deadline. In both years, he was GM or president of baseball operations. I am sorry. I don't want to hear that David Stearns has done a good job. And Met fans continue to support him. I'm not saying to just completely throw him out of the table and say to hell with this. I already says if he does what he needs to do, he'll get all the credit in the world for me. But too many people are acting like he's done a good job. This farm system was not him. He acquired it. He came into this team with the farm system. What did he draft? 2 players, maybe? This whole farm system is everybody else before him. It's Brody. It's Epler, mostly. So let's not act like David Stearns has put this farm system together and he getting all the credit. He's done a terrible job. Nobody could say he's done a good job at this point on January 15th. The same people that were complaining to me that, well, what am I talking about David Stearns, were the same people bitching when Alonso went to the Orioles and Diaz went to the Dodgers and they traded Brandon Nimmo and Jeff McNeil. You can't have it both ways. Don't bitch about that when you're supporting the guy who did that. And yes, Steve Cohen has a lot of blame as well because he allowed that to happen. But there's a reason Steve Cohen is in this negotiations now. He is in the negotiations now because he knows this has been a terrible offseason. And he knows there is nobody else better on the market than Kyle Tucker. That's why he's involved. Because I truly believe he doesn't trust David Stearns enough to get it done. Yeah, he can get the Devin Williams deal and the Luke Weaver and, make a Nimmo trade for Simeon or sign Jorge Polanco. But where is he being the lead guy in a big deal? Bringing everybody in. It wasn't Alonso. It wasn't Soto. Anybody who believes that, you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. I respect the hell out of a lot of the content creators. Everybody knows that I'm good with these guys. Right? I respect the hell out of them. They all do great work. But you can't be that naive. This is the problem with Met fans. They fall for the propaganda bullshit, and they fall into that category of supporting this guy when he's done nothing. Constantly, the owner had to step in to get major deals done. Yes, Steve Cohen, David Stearns was in the room. Of course he was. But you know what? Who is leading that negotiation? Who is at the head of the table? Steve Cohen, not David Stearns. Let's act like this guy hasn't done anything, because he hasn't. And we all know it's going to happen, right? We already seen, right? My boy Heck, right? We seen John from Till Messer Was Part already talked about if the Mets sign Kyle Tucker, that everybody has to go in a different direction and talk about David Stearns in a positive manner. Why are we not giving Steve Cohen credit for coming into this negotiations? Because we know that fourth year would have never happened with David Stearns. So stop acting like this guy has done a good job. He completely obliterated the team, which you can agree or disagree of what he did so far, especially with the core. But you also got to replace the core. You got to replace players, not veteran guys that are going to be gone in 2 years, possibly 3. So again, this is the same guy in David Stearns that said, well, we like a lot of our prospects. We see them having a big part of this roster. Yet you're in on Kyle Tucker. You were in on Cody Bellinger. You're in on Framber Valdez. You possibly might be on the trade market for a top starting pitcher. So he's saying 2 different things. And this is why I don't believe this guy, and I don't even listen to him speak anymore, because it's useless. David Stearns talked about the prospects like he was going to use them and not go big on free agents or bring guys in here that can fill holes that the prospects can't be on this roster. This is what they're doing now. Kyle Tucker doesn't block Carson Bench or even Cody Bellinger, but at the same time, you also have another outfield prospect in Ryan Clifford. Jet Williams, who is kind of a utility guy, they basically made him an outfield prospect because there's too many goddamn infielders. So you're blocking these guys. So this is why whatever he says, his actions are saying something different. You're very much in on Kyle Tucker. Now, if that's David Stearns doing, which I find it very hard to believe, and now Steve Cohen's involved, well, I mean, clearly Steve Cohen isn't 100% confident in what David Stearns is doing right now. No owner gets involved if things are going fine. If the guy that they hire are doing the job. Because Steve Cohen said it when they spoke to him. Yeah, I'm letting David Stearns have full reign, do what he has to do. And what happened? Steve Cohen is right back in the mix. Is that true, LB, about Kalshi, the app? Bill, okay, so you probably haven't been on his channel at all. I don't care that the core got broken up. I was one that was not heartbroken at all. I'm just saying, and everybody knows this, whoever follows my channel, and guys, you can talk to Bill if you want in the chat. I am not one that gave a damn about the core. I said 3 years ago to break up the core. Because this core continued to lose and continue to fail, and they didn't fit, and they continue to lose. But Met fans are too emotionally attached to players, and it forced a lot of these owners' issues to make those decisions, in my opinion. So I don't care about the core. Nimmo, I ain't losing any sleep over Nimmo. Definitely none over Jeff McNeil. I did not want Alonso back. I said that. So I'm not mad about it. But you also got to replace those guys. You can't say, oh, well, let's use the prospects. Okay, great. You want to use the prospects? I'm on board. But you say that, but your actions are saying else, are doing something else. Because right now you're in on Kyle Tucker. How's that helping the prospects? Because all you're doing is taking up a spot. That's why it doesn't make sense. So in my opinion, I'd rather just get the proven player. Give me Kyle Tucker. Go get a top line starting pitcher. If that's Peralta, if that's Skubal, if you want to sign Framber Valdez, great. Then you're actually trying to win, not trying for hopes and dreams of prospects that most of the time fail. So this is where we are right now. We know that the Blue Jays are willing to go 10 years. Now, I don't know why they have to go 10 years. Like, if Tucker really wants to go to the Blue Jays, 10 years doesn't have to happen. I think there's more possibility that he doesn't want to go to Toronto. Because why are we hearing that the Blue Jays would up their offer to 10 years if they're so desperate and they know that he hasn't signed yet? He's still not on the team yet. So I think that's where it is right now when it comes to Tucker and what he wants to do. Because if he's so serious about going to the Blue Jays, then why did the Mets up the offer to a 4th year? Why are the Blue Jays willing to go 10 years? Now, I think that's ridiculous, but I always say, if you want the player, get the player. You worry about the money, you worry about the years then. Because I'm not worried about the first 5 years of Kyle Tucker, maybe even 6 years of Kyle Tucker. I'm not. We'll worry about years 7, 8, 9, and 10 when we get to that point. The same thing we're going to do with Lindor, the same thing we're going to do with Juan Soto. Same thing we would have done with Pete Alonso in a 5-year deal when he's 35 years old. This is what happens. Bill, Tucker does block prospects. Right now, you have 2 outfield holes. Let's say Carson Benz gets center field. Let's say Kyle Tucker gets one of the corner outfield positions. You got Jet Williams, you got Ryan Clifford. Those guys are outfielders. Now, Ryan Clifford could be a first baseman. He played some first base in the minors, but he's considered an outfielder still. Jet Williams doesn't have a spot in the infield, so he's definitely an outfielder. So you're blocking those guys. And we're just checking. Let's see. I know somebody just hold on, guys. I know somebody just posted that the Dodgers 4-year, $200 million. I don't think that's true. You haven't really heard anything about the Dodgers, which is always scary as well. All right, hold on, guys. Just checking what's going on. The Mets are a mess. Sal, how you doing, buddy? I'm just checking the comments really quick, guys. Yeah, exactly. Like they're on this short-term deal nonsense. And again, I understand why they do it, but it's very hard to get top players on short-term deals. If you do, great, but it's very hard to do. Like Framber Valdez, I think John Heyman was on MLB in the morning on MLB Network and saying that, they think Valdez is still looking for a 5-year deal. And, there's not many guys on the market anymore. So he might find a desperate team to give him that 5th year. So, clearly the Mets are probably not going to go that far on Valdez. So that's the problem. And I agree. And that's the thing, Jesus, like that's the problem. Like the short-term deals are awesome. Like if you do it, that's great. We're not locked in for 10 years. But it's very hard to get it done. And I think Steve Cohen is like, all right, I'm on board with these short-term deals. And if he's on board, he's on board. He's the owner. He gets the final say. But his I would say part in this negotiations with Steve Cohen is probably nitpicking at the contract with incentives, with opt-outs, maybe, I don't know, maybe a big bonus to sign the contract. A lot of things that Steve Cohen can do that David Stearns can't in these negotiations. So it's going to be very interesting. And you know what? I hope it happens because we need a little positivity on this team because it's right now, this is a 75-win team. The rotation is garbage. Let's be honest about that. Nolan McLean has a great upside, but he's not proven. He's pitched 9 games. Like, that's not proven. He's shown a lot of greatness in that arm. But let's not act like this guy can't take a step back. I hope he takes 3 steps forward. But let's not act like he can take a step back because he can. And who do you count on in this rotation? The quitter in Kodai Senga? The broken down David Peterson that broken down last year? Storm Mania bouncing back? Clay Holmes coming back for a 2nd year with the Mets as a starter, throwing the most amount of innings he ever done in his career? That's dangerous. That is dangerous. Well done. I mean, it would be nice to win 75 games with this roster. I mean, that'd be an upgrade. But we'll see. Well, explosive. That's funny, right? Because you can look at the 2024 situation, but here's the problem with 2026 is that you brought in guys that had potential, right? Especially in the rotation, right? You had a couple of veterans that gave you the innings that you needed to help your bullpen. And then you got Severino, who stayed healthy, who has a great arm. Same thing with Sean Manaea. So that is the thing that we have to understand when it comes to that. And it's unfortunate because, like, the whole reason the Mets are in this position is two reasons. Number one, the starting pitching was an outright disaster last year. And David Stearns decided to break up the entire core in one full offseason, which leaves a lot of holes. And that is hard to revamp an entire roster, or at least a core, in an offseason when you got rid of them in the same offseason. So it's a lot to do, man. It's a lot to do. It's so much to do, and I don't think it's going to be more than that. So we'll see. I would be at this point, give me Tucker, give me Valdez. I'm fine with that. I think it makes an offseason a little bit better than the way it's been. Probably another bullpen arm, maybe another, see if they do get the starting pitcher. If you get Valdez, maybe you get a Lucas Giolito or Zach Allen on a 1-year deal, throwing them in the back end of this rotation since they didn't have good seasons. Maybe you can throw them in the middle of this rotation, on the back end of the rotation, solidify it a little bit more. Maybe trade one of these, trade a David Peterson or Kodai Senga so you can, alleviate the amount of pitches you have. Because, yeah, you might need 7 or 8, but who's going to the bullpen? Like, that's the issue as well. And Dolo, I got your super chat right here. Rob, they will pivot to Valdez if they miss out on Tucker. But see, just like the Yankees got desperate after they missed out on Soto. I agree. And that doesn't make me happy at all. Because Valdez without Tucker makes no sense. Like, if you lose out on Tucker, I mean, all hands should be off deck. Like, you shouldn't actually at all get anybody else. Honestly, use the kids at this point, because Valdez is not moving the needle by himself. Now I think it'll be a really good 1 and 2 with Nolan McLean and Valdez, but you still got massive holes in your lineup. You don't have right now. Your center field is Tyrone Taylor, possibly Carson Bench. Right now, if Carson Bench does make the team, you got Taylor and Carson Bench. We know Taylor is not a good bat, and Carson Bench is unproven. Then you got Beatty at third base, who you hope has another year like he had last year, maybe better. We have a Marcus Semien that is, let's be honest, is going downhill offensively. Lindor is still good. First base right now is Jorge Polanco. Can't be excited about that. So I don't see losing out on Tucker and pivot to Valdez to make any sense. Because even if you get a Luis Robert and you sign Valdez, is that good enough? Like, you just wasted money for what? To win 78 games instead of 75? I just don't know. Like, they probably will pivot because, again, everybody will be up in arms, and there'll be some Met fans that say, I wouldn't give $50 million to Kyle Tucker anyway, but they rather pay $20 million to Luis Robert when you trade for him. So it's a lot of different ways to look at it, but it's stupid if they pivot to a top starting pitcher if they don't land Tucker. They need to land Tucker and get a top starting pitcher. That makes it worthwhile. All right. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Guys, from X and YouTube, we already have almost 1,500 people in the stream in general. So if I miss your comments, I do apologize. It's just a lot of people. So I do apologize for that. I'm still trying to look at all the comments while still talking to you guys. All right, let's see. Stearns with a 10-year deal. Bo and the Phillies makes sense for sure. Well, Nishay, I mean, because you have difference of opinion doesn't matter, right? You have a difference of opinion. I have a difference of opinion. That's fine. But what is dumb about it? Saying facts that have been the case, or do you not want Tucker? Do you want Tucker, or do you think he's not worth $50 million, which he's probably not? But what is the issue? Like, what are you mad about? Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, did I say something to hit a nerve? That's on you, not on me. I'm giving you my opinion. You don't have to like it, and I take your opinion. I don't have to like it either. But when you insult people, you get called out, especially on this channel. All right. Yeah, Ray. Yeah, I don't know. Bichette is available. Bichette doesn't make no sense on this team. You already got Polanco. You traded for Simeon. Do we really need more infielders? Like, we don't. Well, Darnell, that's something that they have to understand. Like, you can't lose out on Kyle Tucker. You're not going to sign Bellinger, and even if you get a good starting pitcher, that's not. I mean, you destroyed this fan base. Like, you demoralized this fan base. The fan base that went goo goo gaga for Pete Alonso and loved Brandon Nimmo. That is hard to take for a lot of Met fans because they're emotionally attached to these players. So it's tough. But yeah, there won't be people at the ballpark. People will show up on opening day, myself included, because I'm one of the dummies, right? I show up. I'm not in the state anymore, but I go to enough games. So, I will be in spring training. I will be there on opening day and the first series of the year at home. So, look, I mean, I'll be there. I know, a lot of people that you watch on YouTube are going to be there, right? There's fans that go every year. It doesn't matter, right? The loyal fans, right? Not the ones that show up to only big games and when they're winning, which, again, that's your right. It's your money. But yeah, that's what they risk. That is what they risk. They better do a good job the rest of this offseason. And they better get Tucker. They better find a way to get Tucker. They better find a way to get a Valdez or a Peralta or a Skubal. They got to do it. If they don't, then you got to be real with your fan base. You got to be honest with your fan base. Don't spill. In the beginning of the offseason, you're going to be on this high target of players in the outfield and pitching, and you do none of that. And then, within, during the winter meetings, we were hearing the Mets talking about prospects. You can't do both. You can't talk about both and then don't do the other and then go with the prospects and think that everybody's going to be okay with that. Like, just be honest about it. If you're going to use the prospects, don't waste your time with Tucker. Don't waste your time with any top line starter and use your prospects. If you're honest with a fan base, some might not be happy, but at least you're honest. And we respect the fact that you're honest about it and you're trying to retool and rebuild and use these prospects and see what work out. But don't bullshit us like you have been and saying something, one thing, and then doing another with your actions. So that is where we are with the Mets right now. And, the Met fans, they're on a line, they're walking on a thin line right now, right? It's going to suck if Tucker doesn't sign here. It's going to be very, very upsetting. But you have to move on. We all have to move on. We will move on. We'll be pissed. Can't wait for Austin Hayes or Luis Robert to be on this team. So, getting Luis Robert should have been at the trade deadline. I said this 100 times. You had opportunities to do it. You didn't do it. Same thing with the starting pitching at the trade deadline. And, you put yourself in this situation now, like, it's tough because guys are coming off the board, right? Suarez came off the board. That was one of the targets for the Mets as well. So Valdez is getting more, probably smiling a little bit more because guess what? Just like I think it was Dolo, I forgot who said it, but if the Mets lose out on Tucker, they'll probably pivot to Valdez. Well, Valdez is licking his chops because he knows. Oh, Mets are desperate now. They might give me that 5th year. They might even give me a little bit more money in that 4-year deal or that 3-year deal they offered me. So, man, I tell you, it sucks, man. It sucks. Hold on, guys. I'm just checking something real quick. Just want to make sure. See what? Okay. All right. All right. Well, Elvis, I don't know how much like I don't know why. I mean, it's possible, but does he really have to use the Mets to increase the offer for the Blue Jays? I mean, it's already a long-term deal, whatever it might be, 6, 7, 8 years. Like, honestly, if Tucker's trying to get a 10-year deal out of the Blue Jays, then let him go at that point. Like, it's like, come on. It's like either be a Met on that short-term deal, you'll be the second highest payer in baseball, right? Officially, or third, AAV wise. Okay. But yeah, it's like, I understand. Look, I'm all for players getting every penny. I'm all on board with that. But it's like the Blue Jays offered you a damn good deal. Long-term deal is probably close to 300, if not more than that. Like, it's a good enough deal. You could have taken that contract and signed with the Blue Jays, and this would have been over. But he's not doing that. Why? Is it just about spilling out more years for the Blue Jays? Because if he was that serious about going there, once again, why didn't he just sign that long-term deal already? I think there's more to it. There's got to be more to the story that we don't know. And that is where I'm trying to figure out, all right, let's try to break it down. MLB Network was talking. They were saying that he's about to have a kid. Like, his wife is pregnant. He's about to have a kid. That could change a lot of things. Does he want to uproot his pregnant wife or, his very, very infant son, ship him off to Canada? That's a huge family move. And I'm not saying, he got more than enough money where he don't have to lift a finger. But we all have families. We know how difficult it can be. You got a wife. You know how difficult it can be, right? Trying to explain, hey, we're going to Canada, even though we lived in the U.S. all our lives. I know it's Toronto. It's not, Nova Scotia, but it's Toronto, but it's still a different country. So a lot can go into this, not just Tucker's decision of, yeah, I would like to be a Blue Jay. His wife could say, get the fuck out of here. We're not going to Canada. That could change everything. That could be the reason why he's talking to the Dodgers and the Mets about a short-term deal to stay in the States. Very possible, right? We don't know that. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. We will see. All right, I'm just going to roll through the comments again. Yeah, Dola, I understand that, right? It's close to his hometown. Completely understand that, right? Again, everything's aligning for the Blue Jays. But if they're aligning so well with the Blue Jays, why wasn't that long-term deal enough when he knows he's not getting it from anybody else? That's what's confusing. That is what we're all trying to figure out at this point. And yeah, the Blue Jay owner is nuts. And you know what? I still give credit to the Blue Jays, even if it is a 10-year deal, because who gives a shit? Seriously. At the end of the day, these owners are going to raise the prices anyway of the tickets. Everything's going to be more expensive in the ballpark. We all know that. Parking's going to be more expensive. Everything's going to be more expensive. What does it matter? The only thing that it matters is that we're going to complain about it in year 7 or 6. We will complain about it because we're fans. We do that. Who cares? And I've always said this from day one of my channel, and I continue to say it. If you want the player, do what you got to do to get him. There's always consequences with long-term deals. But do you want the player? Clearly, the Mets want the player. Get him. It's hard to get great talent on short-term deals. And you know what? I hope I'm wrong about it with Kyle Tucker. Because if he does sign with the Mets, it's on a short-term deal. Great. I'm ecstatic. But if you lose out on him, the main reason was they only did a short-term deal for him. And that's going to be the issue. And the consequence of that short-term offer was not getting Kyle Tucker. And there's nobody else to blame than the guy who is running this organization and David Stearns, and Steve Cohen's allowing it. So it's their fault. That's what's going to happen. If you get him, smart. You look smart. Of course you do. But let's not act like you tried that hard. You know, Tom, Dick, and Harry can fucking do a 3 or 4 year deal. Especially if you get an approval from the owner about the money. Anybody can do that. But not everybody can do a 7, 8, 9, 10 year deal. And we know the Mets can. They won't. Explosive. Exactly. That's my point. So I'm telling you guys this right now, you'll see it. And thank you for tuning into the Kyle Tucker watch party. Day 2 of the watch show right here on the channel and on X. Again, guys, if you're watching on X right now, jump over to the channel real quick, hit that subscribe button if you don't mind, and thank you for tuning in. Listen, this is the problem, right? There will be Met fans where if Tucker goes to the Blue Jays saying, oh, he wasn't worth $50 million anyway, the same fan base that is going to bitch and moan when you got a corner outfielder that doesn't do anything offensively, and they'll be the first ones to bitch about it, but also bitch about Kyle Tucker giving him $50 million. And we'll say, well, I didn't want him anyway, because there is Met fans that do that. And we'll be back to square one. Just know, Met fans, the ones that are going to complain about it and say, oh, well, it's $50 million a year. That's crazy for Tucker. You will be getting a lesser player, probably much less of a player. And we already talked about the names: Hayes, Donovan, Bader, Luis Robert, all lesser players. If you're okay with that, then you shouldn't be complaining about it when they're terrible offensively or they're not doing what they're supposed to do. That is where we are. So remember, if Tucker does not sign with the New York Mets, it's solely because the Mets didn't go longer in their offer. That's it. There's no other reason. If he's serious about talking to the Mets about a short-term deal and eventually goes to the Blue Jays, it's all about the years and the money. That's on the Mets. That's on David Stearns and Steve Cohen. You might not even have to go to 10 years to land Kyle Tucker. You could have probably went 7. If he's so not willing to go to Toronto, and it has to be 10 years that forces him to go there, you probably could have got him staying in the States for 7. But they're not going to do that. So there we go. If you don't land Kyle Tucker, it's because they didn't go longer in the deal. That is David Stearns' fault and Steve Cohen's fault. That's what it will be. And some Met fans will spin it. I probably get killed on X once again. You know, everybody came after me yesterday, and that's okay, right? Respectfully, it's my opinion. Don't care. But it's a fact. There's too many naive Met fans when it comes to David Stearns acting like he's doing a good job. And constantly Steve Cohen has to get involved on the big-time players because David Stearns is just either philosophically stupid and doesn't want to budge from that philosophy, or he's just not good at negotiating with big-time players. That could be also a possibility. Because Steve Cohen continues to jump into these negotiations all the time. And the only reason why he does that is because he don't think David Stearns has enough grasp on the negotiations. You don't do that for kicks and giggles. Steve Cohen was probably worried he would lose Tucker. And all of a sudden, the report came out, Steve Cohen came in, 4th year popped up. That's not a coincidence. So, all right, let's see. Madoff's money. Alrighty. Let's just, keep on going here. All right, so a little bit of news, but it's not really breaking at all. Mike Mayer said the Mets have traded a lefty pitching prospect Franklin Gomez to the Guardians for international free agent bonus money. We know they signed that top international free agent, $3.9 million. They're probably trying to get more money in there so they can actually give him that money. So nothing crazy, just letting you know what's going on. All right, John Heyman says folks involved say a deal for no. We read that already. Let's see what else we got. All right, let's see. All right, interesting. This is interesting, guys. This is something new, and Metcast posted it. It was from Mike Puma, and this is quoted from Mike Puma. The Mets' staggering $50 million per year offer to star free agent outfielder is over 4 seasons or over 4 years. So, again, Steve Cohen's involved now. Not shocked that that can happen. So, once again, guys, if you're just tuning in, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We've had constantly over 1,500 in the stream on this Kyle Tucker watch party right here on the channel, on X and on YouTube. If you're, again, guys, if you're on X, love that you're on X, head over to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and where I really do appreciate that. So, Mike Puma, about 30 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago, said that the Mets upped their offer past 4 years. Now, is that confirmed from somebody else? I don't know yet. But that was what Mike Puma said. I mean, Mike Puma has been pretty good. He's good at reporting, but he's not the main guys we look at for the news, right? If that's the case, that the Mets offered more than 4 years, this is a back and forth where are the Mets going to keep on going years-wise? 5, 6, 7? Because I'm telling you this right now. If the Mets offer him a 7-year deal or a 6-year deal, he's going to take the Mets offer. Because there's no reason why he's taking this long to sign that long-term deal with the Blue Jays. I don't think he wants to go to Canada, guys. That's just my humble opinion. But he would have done it already. So if you're just tuning in, Mike Puma stated that he's hearing that the Mets have upped their offer past 4 years. Again, we don't know if it's 5 or 6 or 7. I'm assuming it will probably go another year, 5, but we'll see. And again, with Steve Cohen in this negotiations, guess what, guys? He wants Kyle Tucker. Steve Cohen rarely loses. We know we lost with the Japanese pitcher, with Yamamoto and a couple of Japanese pitchers, but they were like dead fast to go to the Dodgers. It was very hard to get them away from the Dodgers. We all know that. But I truly think Steve Cohen really wants Kyle Tucker. And if it's going to take more than what they originally thought, he's going to do it, in my opinion. Kyle Tucker is clearly interested in the Mets for whatever reason. I wish I knew the reason. There's not many reasons. There ain't many good reasons. But he still hasn't signed. Oh, yeah, low-key, hell yeah, man. You give me $400 million, I walk to Canada. And I'm down south. I'll see you in a couple of months. I'll be in Canada in a heartbeat. But, yeah. And Dolo, I know people has been saying that he could be the next Jason Bay. Understandable. But Tucker's such a better player than Jason Bay. Jason Bay wasn't an all-around player. Kyle Tucker is. Jason Bay had one great postseason. He was a solid ball player for the Pirates. But when he played that postseason in Boston, that was what got him the contract. That's what everybody had their eyes open like, whoa. So he was a solid ball player. Nowhere near Tucker. So it's hard to compare, and I hate doing this, like to say, oh, well, let's not sign Kyle Tucker because of Jason Bay. That is always dumb. Always dumb. Like, I don't care what a former player did that is going to stop me from signing a current player that can help this team win. Yeah, Dolo, we all got PTSD on that kind. You know, I was the idiot that bought, I didn't buy the jersey. My father did. He bought a Jason Bay black jersey. It's in the garbage for sure. I don't have that anymore, but Kyle is just a repacked McNeil. I I don't know about that. The guy's a World Series champion. I mean, let's not act like he played on losing teams and he just played with no pressure. The guy was constantly in the postseason. And again, I want guys that constantly are in the postseason, guys who've been clutch in the postseason, guys who are World Series champions. I want those guys. I don't want a guy who's been on losing teams and never had any pressure, and you're going to hope it's going to work out. Now, I'm not saying Kyle Tucker will work out, but I'd rather take that risk for Kyle Tucker than a Luis Robert. A guy who is on a losing team, who has a bad attitude, who clearly doesn't care. That's more worrisome than Kyle Tucker, who I've seen perform in the big spots. Tales from the pen. Brandon numbers were better for how long? 2 years? Like, Brandon Nimmo was a problem. We all knew he was a problem. Everybody loves Brandon Nimmo now, but yet when he goes, 0 for 17 and can't even put the bat on the ball for 2 weeks, Nimmo's terrible. And Nimmo can't play defense. He's terrible. So there's a lot that Brandon Nimmo couldn't do. And Brandon Nimmo did put up good numbers. But those numbers are so bloated. Like, people don't realize that. Like, he would have a really steaming hot, red hot month where he can have below average months and still end up having good numbers at the end of the season. That's why people only look at the numbers and say the final numbers and say, oh, look at that, great player. Yet, you look at Juan Soto's numbers, everybody bitched about his numbers. Oh, well, too many solo home runs, this and that. Running the score position wasn't good. Oh, so you're going to break down Soto's numbers, but not Brandon Nimmo's numbers. They did the same thing with Pete Alonso. Last year, Pete Alonso had a great year. Clutch year. Every month had solid numbers. But most of the time, he had like 2.5 months, maybe, of like red hot numbers. And then average to below average numbers the remainder of the year in other months. And those numbers look great because of those hot months. And Brandon Nimmo did the same thing for years. And well done. Yeah, we'll see what the absence does, right? We're waiting to see. But you know what? Everybody has it in their mind that this team is not going to be better. Or this team is not going to put up numbers. Like, this team put up less numbers last year, even though their top 4, numbers-wise, were the best in baseball. Like, they were in the top 5 in individual numbers. That's how good they were. It was 5 through 9 that was the problem, not 1 through 4. So we'll see. We will see. Tails, I don't even think Brandon Nimmo was worth $20-something million, to be quite honest with you. I don't think Lindor's worth $35 million. I don't think Kyle Tucker's worth $40 million, or Ohtani's worth $70 million, or, Soto's worth $60, $70 million. None of these guys are worth that type of money. But that's what the market dictates. And that's what we have to talk about and deal with. That's it. Because at the end of the day, when he goes to the plate and what he does during the season, yeah, we'll discuss, oh, well, he's getting $50 million and he's not performing well. Of course, we're going to break that down and talk about it. But at the end of the day, it's either he's going to be good or bad. He can make $10 million or $50 million. Vientos made no money last year. We destroyed him. He was a shell of himself in 2024. So it's not about the money. It's about the performance. If you do your job, we're going to be okay. It doesn't matter what you make. Like in 2022, 21, 22, 23, when Lindor was kind of scuffling a little bit, everybody's like, overpaid shortstop. 2024, we're singing My Girl. So contract means nothing. Once they sign it, it's done. You can't change it. So just look at the player and what he does. Kill the player when he sucks. Give credit to the player when he's doing well. That's it. Well done. Guess what? If you don't want Kyle Tucker, or you can't get Kyle Tucker, you're probably going to get a Robert. You're probably going to get a Robert Jr. That's what you're going to get. So it's about the better player or the lesser player. I'd rather have the better player. Right? But Met fans will spin. Oh, Luis Robert Jr. And, talk about change of scenery. He's got potential, but all that nonsense, to make them believe in the player that hasn't been good in a couple of years. That's a problem. Well, that would be interesting. I mean, that would be awesome, right? You solve your outfield. Bellinger in center, Tucker in right or left, Soto in right or left. Pretty damn good outfield, right? The lineup is already better. Now you just get a top line starter, and now we're talking about a team that can actually contend. That would be crazy. I don't know if they're going to do that, but I'm telling you guys, I think Steve Cohen is absolutely pissed off. And when Steve Cohen is pissed off, we know what he's done before. Not saying he's going to overspend on everybody, but you know what? Why would anything be off the table at this point? Why? No doubt in my mind, if they land Kyle Tucker, it's because of Steve Cohen joining negotiations. Not just showing up and seeing the deal and like, all right, I approve this. No, it's not about that. We just heard Mike Puma. If you're just tuning in, once again, Mike Puma reported that he's hearing the Mets have upped their offer again, past 4 years. Whatever number that might be. We don't know the number, but I'm just saying. But man, if that's the case, then Steve Cohen really wants him. And he's not playing games. And if you up to a fifth year, it's probably $250. I mean, it's hard to turn that up, because again, you can get 10 years from the Blue Jays, but it might be $37 million, 35, 40. You're losing. I mean, it's obviously over the longevity of the contract, you're going to get more money, but you are getting $50 million a year for 5, maybe 6 years. That's, that's not easy to pass up. And oh, by the way, you stay in the country. Like, people got to understand that's a factor. That's why the Blue Jays have to overpay to get guys over the border. Well, Tone, I don't see. I think it's hard to say that they're using the Mets, who have a shorter term deal, to get more out of the Blue Jays. If the Blue Jays were smart, I wouldn't even touch the offer again. Tucker, you said you wanted a long-term deal. We give you a long-term deal. If you want to go to the Mets, that's on you on the short-term deal. We gave you what you wanted. The Blue Jays got to be careful, because if the Phillies pop up out of nowhere and sign Bo Bichette and Tucker goes to the Mets, the Blue Jays just lost 2 bats on the market. That's their problem. Well, Tucker could be using the Jays and the Mets for the Dodgers as well, but I don't know how serious the Dodgers are. Like, the Dodgers are going to put an offer out there for sure, right? The Dodgers know that they can win a championship without Kyle Tucker, but hey, if he takes this deal, it's a win-win, right? Short-term deal, less money than the Mets gave, less money than the Blue Jays gave, less years, and we get the player and we get it even better. So yeah, I mean, it might be a possibility as well. All right, let's see what else we got here. And watch, that might be true too, right? The Dodgers are in it just to make the Mets bid higher. Because, I still find it hard to believe, guys. And I said this a couple of times now, but for the people just tuning in, I said this a lot now. I do believe that if Tucker was serious about going to Toronto and he told his ex-teammates he wants to go to Toronto and all that, the long-term deal is on the table. Like, maybe the Blue Jays are desperate enough and don't care they go to 10 years, then good for them, right? I mean, they were very close to winning the World Series championship, so I don't blame them for doing that. I never blame my team for getting a player, wanting a player and getting them by any means necessary. Yes, fans will bitch that it's too much money, too many years, but nobody cares when opening day starts and they call his name on opening day. You're going to cheer him like crazy. So I truly think that if he really wanted to go to Toronto, this would have been over already. There would have been a watch party for Kyle Tucker. It would have just been, the Blue Jays got him. Were the Mets really serious about Kyle Tucker? But there's a reason why there are teams other than the Blue Jays that have been seriously involved in Kyle Tucker. They must know something that we don't. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. If he signs with the Dodgers, the Mets, or somebody else that's not the Blue Jays, it's because he didn't want to go to Toronto. And if that's because his wife's pregnant, he'll have an infant son in whatever amount of time and doesn't want to uproot his family to Canada, I wouldn't be shocked. I think that's the only reason why the Mets are still involved and why the Dodgers are still involved, or maybe another team that we're not hearing involved. But right now it's the Dodgers and the Mets. And New York, yeah, they talked about he's a low pressure guy, but you know what? It's hard to be low pressure when you're in the playoffs every year. You're in World Series every other year. You're winning World Series, and he's a low pressure guy, but shows up in the big moments. So we'll see. Oh, you know what, Explosive? That would just put the icing on the cake. If the Mets lose Tucker and today Bellinger signs with the Yankees, and the Mets are like, uh-oh, now we're in trouble. Like that would be a rough if you're for Mets fans for us. That would be rough. Yeah, free healthcare, but let's be honest. Millions of dollars, you ain't worrying about healthcare. Let's be honest about that. Especially when you're in a union that you pay your union dues, you pay your insurance through that, and you're perfectly fine. You know, I know some people keep on saying the Giants. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. Tone, that would just be Mets like, right? That would be LOL Mets. And you know, again, there will be Met fans, maybe even some content creators that would be like, haha, oh, look at that. Bellinger ain't worth that money. Tucker's not worth them years of money. And you know, they'll make themselves believe whoever the Mets get, which are lesser players than either Bellinger or Tucker, they'll try to make themselves believe that, hey, that's a good move. When at the end of the day, it's a desperate move at that point because you just failed getting Tucker and not even, you know, pivoting away from Bellinger. So again, it is what it is at this point. You know what? Let David Stearns dig his own grave then. Let's be honest about that. If he wants to screw up this Tucker deal, and again, I think David Stearns is on a back burner with the Tucker situation. I think maybe Steve Cohen came in this negotiations way too late, and it wouldn't have made a difference. But the lack of aggressiveness from David Stearns is why we're in this situation. So it is what it is. NWO, why would you think that Steve Cohen walking into the negotiations took over the negotiations? Of course he did. You think David Stearns is offering another fourth year? And what, if you want to believe the reports about Mike Poomer, they might have offered more than a fourth year? You think that David Stearns missed a 3-year deal? Come on, guys. Come on. Can we stop giving David Stearns credit where he don't deserve? Like, Steve Cohen is not coming into these negotiations because David Stearns is doing what he's supposed to do. I'm sorry. I find that very hard to believe. I don't care what Steve Cohen says or David Stearns says. They're not going to tell the media that, yeah, you know, Steve Cohen's going to say, oh, well, you know, I didn't like David Stearns, how he was negotiating with Tucker. He ain't going to say that. Of course he's going to back up his guy. But David Stearns ain't offering him a fourth year or more than that. It's all Steve Cohen. That's why Steve Cohen gets all the credit for Juan Soto, all the credit for Pete Alonso. So that's where we are. The Tennessee Rascal Ponies. So, guys, we're an hour into the stream. No signing so far for Kyle Tucker. Again, we'll keep this going for a couple hours, nothing crazy. You know, I'll take a break here and there, just, you know, because, you know, it might be a very long stream. And, you know, we'll go from there. Sorry, guys. I thought something popped up. That would have been funny. All right. Here we go. All right. So once again, guys, if you're watching on X, head over to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I do appreciate that. Everybody who's on YouTube already, keep it coming, guys. Keep it up with the comments. And guys, start asking questions or, give your opinions, stuff like that. We can talk about your questions and opinions and all that. I'll pop up the comment on the screen so we can talk about it as well and go from there. So, we can get the conversation going a little bit more. Let's see. Justin says the Jays need to focus on Bo Bichette and forget about Tucker. Well, they don't see it that way. They don't. I mean, they still could pivot, right? If they lose Tucker, they can get Bichette. That's what I probably think. We'll see. For sure. Well, John, has David Stearns done a good job? Has he? He took over a team in 2024 that he said himself he's retooling. He set up that offseason to have tradable contracts to trade at the deadline. The players said, fuck you, we're going to win. And it completely stopped this plan of trading all these guys away. And then in 2025, he put more of his touch on this team, and it was an outright fucking disaster. And he just got rid of the core of this team and add a couple of veteran guys. Nothing special. Has he done a good job? Because if he's done a good job, tell me where. Don't tell me the farm system, because he hasn't really done anything to the farm system. What he drafted a couple of guys. Most of this farm system is the guys before him. So he hasn't done a good job. Where has he done a good job? I'm not stating anything he's done or that's not factual. He has not done it. Every time you check on the channel, well, guess what? How about David Stearns do something positive so we can talk positive about David Stearns? Not always losing out on players because he's not willing to go the extra mile, which everybody else seems to do except for David Stearns. So stop with that nonsense. He hasn't done a good job. He sucks until he proves he's not. And he doesn't suck. There's no proof of him doing a good job. Come on. Maybe tell David Stearns to do something so we can say he doesn't suck. It's an embarrassment what he's done over these couple of seasons. He has not done a good job. He's done such a bad job that Steve Cohen has to continue to go into negotiations with top players because David Stearns can't do it himself. We all know this. David Stearns, Steve Cohen ain't going to say it live on television that he don't think David Stearns can do a good job. He hired the guy. He's going to back him up. But actions speak louder than words. Again, the writing's on the wall, guys. There's too much evidence of David Stearns doing a bad job. He does it. He starts doing something that is surprising and good. He'll get credit. But I'm not giving it. Go back to the trade deadline. I was pissed off that they didn't get a starting pitcher, but I was happy with the relievers that we got at the trade deadline. I gave him credit there. But you get credit when you do a good job, not when you do a bad job. All right, let's go. Andrew, I don't think Steve Cohen's going to go to. I mean, I don't know. Look, Steve Cohen, if it goes to 10 years, David Stearns, he must have wrapped them in a ball somewhere in a corner because there's no way. David Stearns probably itching right now because this past 3 years. He probably got hives coming out of his skin because we know he don't do it. Now, I don't know how desperate Steve Cohen is because a lot happened this offseason. He's gotten killed by the fan base. His own wife came off social media. That's how bad it's been for the Cohens from fans. Steve Cohen has been very quiet on X or on social media. Again, his wife got off social media because of the backlash from fans. So I don't know how desperate he is. Clearly, he's desperate enough to walk into the negotiations with David Stearns. That's all I can say. I don't know how desperate he is. We'll find out. You know, when we heard about a 3-year deal and the Mets went 4 years, and now Mike Puma reported that he's hearing it could be past 4 years. Well, that's all Steve Cohen. And don't think that anybody's going to tell you otherwise, because we know it's not true. You can try to believe it, but we know it's not true. And there will be content creators that will say that, oh, Stearns did a good job here. Come on. Come on. Small market Stearns? Come on, please. The guy doesn't even know how to spend money if it's right in front of him. And he's signed bad contracts more than good contracts. That's a fact. Let's see. Just looking through the comments, guys. Give me a second. Well, okay, Green. You really think. Now, don't get me wrong. I think David Stearns doesn't mind giving a high AAV for a short-term deal. But once it gets past 3 years, it's not David Stearns at this point. Again, bring the David Stearns supporters here. Tell me all the good he's done, because I'm missing it. I'm missing all the good he's done. There's not much. Very little. Very little. So yeah, again, you want to keep on giving the support to David Stearns, who's proven nothing in this organization, who's proven it with another small market team that also constantly choked year after year in the postseason. Now, it's great that they made the postseason, but he put those teams together that continue to choke. So he hasn't done a good job here. He's constantly lowballing players years-wise when he knows other teams are going to give him more years. Again, there is no way that anybody can believe if Kyle Tucker signs with the Blue Jays, it wasn't because of he loves Canada. He loves Toronto. He loves the maple leaf. He loves maple syrup. No, you know what it is? The Mets weren't willing to go longer. If the Blue Jays have to go 10 years, the Dodgers or the Mets could have probably went 6 or 7, and you probably keep him in the States. And I'm already packaging Steve Cohen with David Stearns at this point, because Steve Cohen's allowing this to go on. He's not immune to this. I blame who needs to be blamed. David Stearns does this because that's his philosophy. Steve Cohen knows this and continues to allow it to happen. It's on Steve Cohen as well. But make no mistake about it. The $50 million per year isn't the problem. We know David Stearns is willing to give more AAV. It's the years. Let me say it again for people who can't comprehend. It's the years with David Stearns, not the AAV. It's the years that David Stearns is allergic to. Anything past 3 years. Why, again, I think Steve Cohen wants Tucker badly enough where he walked into these negotiations, not just strolling in to see how it's going. No, in there to get the job done, which David Stearns doesn't do with anybody big that the Mets are trying to get. Do we all forget this? He constantly does it with the free agents. He constantly do it with the trades that he just doesn't do enough for. I'm still pissed off about the Garrett Crochet deal. That should have been all Mets all over that. You had a guy who was under control and he was willing to sign an extension. Now you're in a situation where people want Peralta, a rental. Skubal, I want Skubal, but he is a rental. So you put David Stearns not doing certain things allow this situation to happen, and where the Mets in now, where they're most likely going to have to trade for a rental top line starter if they don't sign Valdez. Whose fault is that? It ain't mine, it ain't yours. It's David Stearns, along with Steve Cohen, allowing this to happen. let's go. Just looking at the comments, guys. Yeah, explosive. That's funny with Andy Martino, right? He became the Mets reporter now, right? He got hired as a Mets reporter, and he's been exactly what you said. He's been radio silence. I don't know why. I think the Mets probably hired him to shut him up, because we all know anytime Andy Martino has anything to say, it's usually negative towards the New York Mets. Right? When, the Mets are not going to get Soto, right? Remember that last year with SNY, with Salicata, and coming on radio shows and saying the Mets are not the favorites to land Soto, and he kept it going until the Mets signed Soto, and all of a sudden he has a different tune. Like, Andy Martino is a Yankee shill. We all know this. Right? You could say he's a good reporter or not. Again, he has his moments for sure. But he's been there. Is that a coincidence that the Mets hire him as a Mets reporter and he's just been non-existent during the most crucial time of an offseason? It's kind of crazy. Excuse me. All right, let's see. Well, yeah, Tone, that seems to be Stearns' philosophy, though. And again, it's very hard to win that way because you need a lot of things to go right. You need a Devin Williams bounce back year, a Luke Weaver bounce back year. You need Simeon to find a fountain of youth. You need Jorge Polanco to be as good as he was last year, maybe better, because we need that offense. So that's the problem. Like, you need bounce back seasons from guys. And when you sign a bunch of guys that had tough seasons last year, and you're looking at, analytics where you say, oh, well, the results weren't good, but the analytics show something else. It's the stupidest fucking thing that I ever heard. Results matter. I don't care what the analytics said. Oh, well, his pitches were good. His spin rate was better than it was 3 years ago. Doesn't matter. The ball went over the wall. He constantly gave up games for the Yankees. I don't care about the analytics. The results say otherwise. And I think that's his problem. He tries to get a lot of good deals, low risk, high reward. But when you get 4 or 5 of those guys, you need all those to go right to have a successful season. That's a dangerous game to play. You're playing with fire at that point. And he's done that every year he's run this team. He got lucky in 2024. And I gave him credit for it. But make no mistake about it. He wasn't signing these guys to have a good season. He was signing these guys to trade them in the middle of the season. That was his goal. It blew up in his face because the players actually played well. Yep, John Harbaugh to the Giants. I know Giant fans are happy about that. Well done for sure. Like, we don't know if this team sucks, but let's be honest, if the rotation is going to suck and there's no indication that it's going to be good since they're the same rotation as last year, the rotation sucks, you're going to have a hard time trying to win. Because all you're going to do is take out your starters earlier, just like last year. You're going to overuse a bullpen that should be solid, and you're back to square one. You're going to destroy your bullpen by the first half. Then you're going to need multiple bullpen arms at the trade deadline, plus probably a starting pitcher. And it's just going to be a trickle-down effect where we know David Stearns isn't going to go above and beyond the trade deadline because he doesn't. Above and beyond is not in his vocabulary. He doesn't like to get uncomfortable. And that's obvious from what he's done these past couple of seasons. Well, Tucker, yeah, they might be looking for warmer weather, but if they're living in Florida, why go to the LA, right? Spring training's in Arizona. But again, the Mets obviously are in Port St. Lucie. I know he lives near Tampa, so Toronto makes sense for spring training. But once spring training is over, he's up north. So, we'll see, guys. Again, there's a lot of reasons that all of us can use of why Tucker could go there, could go here, could go there. It's just a preference at this point. But it is a little surprising that he hasn't taken the long-term deal of the Blue Jays yet. There's a reason for that. What that is, I don't know. And there is also a reason why the Mets are continuing to up their offer, which, according to Mike Poomer, they upped their offer past 4 years. So the Mets clearly want him, and they clearly feel like they have a good shot if they continue to negotiate. That's what I think. Don't underestimate the taxes in New York. Have you looked at California or Canada tax? It's just as high, if not high. Well, it is higher. Canadian tax, LA tax California tax is much higher than New York. So we're winning in that category. I mean, everybody's losing in those three areas when it comes to taxes, but New York actually wins in that aspect. Well, Dome, I understand. Why am I so hard on Stearns? Because he's supposed to be doing the job of acquiring players to help this team win. And again, he is a short-term guy when it comes to deals. A lot of good players, a lot of great players aren't doing that. So it's hard to be good when you're getting lesser players because that's the players you're most likely going to get. That's why. It's not about Cohen's money. The money's not the issue. It's the years. The years are the problem, guys. The years are, again, a problem. Let's see. Just looking through the comments, guys, just to see we can talk about some more stuff that you talked about in the comments. Stearns is allergic to even numbers. Yeah, it's possible he doesn't want New York, but we don't know that. If the Mets are up in their offer or they're serious about him, if there's any inkling that he might not want them, I think Cohen would back out. I think Cohen hates getting played. He already said it. I think if he has any indication that Tucker's using them, I think they back out. But maybe that's not the case. Again, we don't know, but yeah, that's something to think about for sure. Well, I mean, hasn't that been why Steve Cohen hasn't been in many negotiations? Because what does David Stearns do? He always goes to the lesser player. So Steve Cohen is not walking in negotiations for Devin Williams. Right? It's rare that big time players are talking to the Mets where Steve Cohen needs to be involved. So Steve Cohen goes after the lesser players. You don't need anyone to worry about that. So, yeah. Yeah, but again, John, understandable with infusing young talent with mixing up veterans and leadership. That's fine. But it doesn't make sense when you have top outfield prospects and trying to get a top player in the outfield. That prevents other guys from taking spots up. That's why it doesn't make sense. Either you're going to get Kyle Tucker and you have him, let's say, 5 years with Juan Soto being here forever. Center field is open, so let's say Carson Bench is the guy. What are you doing with Jet Williams and Ryan Clifford, who are both outfielders? Ryan Clifford could potentially be a first baseman, but Jet Williams is in the stratosphere. Where's he playing in the infield? And he doesn't have an outfield spot at this point. So it doesn't make sense. It makes sense when you're filling holes that need to be filled because you don't have the prospects to fill them. The Mets aren't doing that. The Mets have the prospects to fill those holes, but they're still willing to get top players or veteran guys. So it does not make sense. That's the point. Tucker's taking a job away from a top prospect. 100%. Because somebody's going to win the outfield position. Let's say it is Carson Bench. There's nowhere for Jet Williams or Ryan Clifford to play. Ryan Clifford probably not ready, but even if he is, where's he playing? That's the problem. So you're blocking other prospects that he continues to talk about, that he talks about all the time and likes. Something has to give. Yeah, but Tone, is he reeling? Is Steve Cohen reeling himself in? Because since hiring David Stearns, he went after Juan Soto. He's going after Tucker. He re-signed Pete Alonso last year. Like, you're not really reeling him in because he's going in negotiations with the big guys. So it's not reeling anybody in. If Steve Cohen's trying to reel himself in by hiring David Stearns, then he shouldn't be in these negotiations. Yeah, to say, hey, look, we have a deal in place here. Can you approve it? That's the only time Steve Cohen needs to hear about it and see the contract. But he's getting involved more than he said he was. So involved that we're hearing that the Mets could offer possibly more than 4 years. That was reported by Mike Puma. So we'll see. Mets don't get him. It sucks. Depending on what the Mets final offer was, we'll see how close it was or not close to the Blue Jays offer or whoever he goes to. And then we'll definitely have a discussion. So it's almost 1:30 on this Thursday. We are in the Kyle Tucker Watch Day 2 on the show on X and on YouTube. Constantly over 1,400, 1,500 people, hundreds of people on YouTube, hundreds of people on X. I do appreciate that, guys. Once again, guys, if you are on X, jump over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I will appreciate that if you do. And we're just going to continue for, I would say, close to 3:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. If anything doesn't happen, we'll call it day 2. We'll stop it. And if he does sign, I'll do a breaking news show whenever it happens and go from there. I think we did a couple of Juan Soto watch parties, and I think I did a watch party the same day he signed, and I think I went off like 3 or 4 hours before he signed with the Mets, and we were like, oh, it would be great if he signs during the show, and of course he didn't. He signed like a few hours later, and then me and Chris jumped on the stream and talking about Soto. So we'll see how that goes. It would be cool if he signs and we're live. That would be cool. Well, New York, I mean, all teams have locker room issues. When you lose, you got locker room issues, right? This team was very similar in 2024 when they went on that run. Did anybody care about locker room issues? No. McNeil and Lindor were the double play combination. Well, not technically, but McNeil and Lindor were on the team, right? The locker room issues go away when you win. That's it. All right, guys, let me just check all of this going on. Let's see if we get any news here. All right, let's see. All right. Sounds like nothing special. And once again, guys, the Mets did sign their top international free agent that they stole from the Yankees, Wandy Asigan, for $3.9 million. So uh, that's good news. If obviously international signings are always important, which is good. And who knows if this kid's going to be good or not? We hope he is, but we won't probably see him for 3 years. So we did sign him today, and that's cool. But ain't going to help us now. Sorry, guys. My phone's blowing up. When my phone say like I got my boss texting me, I got other people texting me, a couple family members texting me, and then my phone's just, I don't know if you guys can hear the vibration, but my phone's vibrating like crazy. And when that happens, that's usually like multiple group chats. My coworker Met fans that are all in a group chat together that are, we always constantly talk about the Mets. When news happens, we talk about it. Other, group chats with Met fans and stuff like that. So, when you get a lot of, notifications, you're like, oh, what happened? The rumors do point to the Jays. I agree with that. Excuse me. Did Morosi have Tucker flying to Toronto? Are we following the plane like he did with Otani? That's funny. Yeah, Gigi, I don't know about that, but you could say the same thing for the Blue Jays. They're the only ones that have the long term deal. Why hasn't he sounded? Why didn't this been announced already? Right? You can say the same thing. Like I understand your point, but you can use that same argument for the Blue Jays having a long term deal. Well, I'm not going to blame the Mets per se. Like the guy has a choice, but if he goes to the team with the longer term deal, it's clear that the Mets didn't get him because they weren't willing to go longer. That's just what happens. You know, Usually it's the highest bidder. If that's the case, the Mets are out. But again, the highest bidder. They got more AAV, but the Blue Jays have more years. Again, the issue with the Mets are years with everybody. That's why they don't land the guys they should be landing because of the years, not necessarily the dollar amount. Because the dollar amount is pointless to talk about because we know the Mets and David Stearns is willing and doesn't mind giving a high AAV as long as it's a short term deal. Dolo, they better not. they better not. They better not leave the rotation as is if you get Tucker. It makes no sense if you get Tucker and don't fix this rotation. Like the offense wasn't the problem last year. We scored more than enough runs to win enough ball games. We all know the starting pitching was a disaster. They were either giving up 5 or 6 runs a game, and the Mets were constantly behind in games where the offense had to come back and win 8-7 just to win a ball game. Or the starting rotation or the starting pitcher went 3 innings, couldn't go further, and we had to use 9 guys in our bullpen. So I said this earlier in the show. I'm going to say it again. If you're not going to get a top line starting pitcher to help this rotation, then don't even bother signing Kyle Tucker. Use the prospects and make this a dead season. Let all these prospects play. Hopefully some pan out, and then we can have a conversation during the strike about the Mets doing what they're supposed to do in 2027. Because it's stupid at that point. Because you're having the situation you had last year come up again in 2026. I just don't understand why that would make any sense. The Mets will get a pitcher at the deadline. No, they won't. Where have they shown of them doing that when they should have done that? Last year was the perfect time to get a starting pitcher. They didn't. They had no rotation at the deadline. It was Clay Holmes and nobody else. Multiple injuries, guys not performing. They had nobody in this rotation. Last year in the trade deadline, where the Mets were still hanging on by a thread, they had an opportunity to get a starting pitcher. They didn't do it. So I don't have confidence in David Stearns because he shies away to bring anybody good here when it comes to the starting pitching. And I'm going to expect him to do it at the deadline when he's afraid to do it in the offseason. I don't know about that. Until he does it, I mean, we're saying he's going to do it. And, you know, me and Chris had this conversation multiple times last year. He truly believed the Mets were going to go get a starting pitcher at the deadline. He was very confident. I wasn't. Now, I truly wish I was wrong because I think it would have helped this team, but it didn't happen. Like, until he actually does it, I can't be confident that he will. And that's so frustrating to say because I want to like the guy. I want to give this guy credit, but he's making it freaking hard to do so. And that annoys me. I don't like being negative. I know I'm Mr. Negative, but I don't like being negative. But it's hard to not be negative with the shit show that is currently the New York Mets and the guys running this team. It's a constant problem. And something's got to give here. Like, use the prospects and don't sign anybody, or really sign people, because don't half-ass it, which I like to say as well. Don't get Kyle Tucker and not get a top-line starter because you're half-assed in the offseason. Because all you're going to do is need more at the deadline that is going to be very hard to do. Oh, you're always going to need bullpen help, right? So you know you're going to need that. Oh, now you need a starting pitcher? A top-line starter? Oh, wonderful. Oh, wait, but you know what? The bats haven't been great. Maybe we need another bat. Maybe Beatty doesn't perform well and we need somebody else. Or we need a bat somewhere. So now you need more things at the deadline, which is very hard to get. You know, you could solve, you can, I'm not saying you have to fill every hole in the offseason, but fill most of them. So there's a good shot you don't need everything at the deadline because that's very hard to do. That's why you have an offseason, to fill those holes. You can't predict injuries. You can't predict all that other stuff. But when you leave holes, what the hell you think you're going to need at the deadline? The holes that you didn't fill, plus probably more. That is why I don't trust David Stearns with that. Well, Chris, I mean, you might say that, but don't listen to David Stearns because he says these guys are ready, that they're on the precipice of being a major leaguer. That David Stearns is saying something different. Carson Benj, Jet Williams, Tong, Sprout, on and on we go. So Stearns is saying something different. That's what he believes. Well, yeah, JK, but we don't know that, right? They might not be in contention, but if they are, I don't want to hear Met fans saying you're confident in David Stearns doing what he needs to do because he's proven 2 years in a row that he didn't do what he's supposed to do. 2024, I gave him a slight pass because this team was only 2 months into their real red-hot streak, into their comeback to make the playoffs. So I'm not going to completely kill him there because he did make some moves. Not enough, but again, I'm not going to kill him 100% because it wasn't the plan. It wasn't the plan that he had going into the season. And to do that when you had a different plan, I can understand that. But ultimately, what killed that team in the playoffs was the starting pitching broke down because they threw a tremendous amount of innings. That's why he needed to get even a quality starter that could have gave you innings that might have helped a little bit at the end of the season where you didn't have to push guys more and more innings. But ultimately, it didn't happen. And the lineup, I mean, we ran into a juggernaut in the Dodgers, but we did take him to game 6. So, and last year was a complete disaster. Anthony, yeah, sure, they do. They do. But why hasn't Kyle Tucker signed yet? If it's that much of a gap and Tucker is still not signed, why hasn't he signed? That is the question of the day in day 2 of the Kyle Tucker watch party. If the gap of years are so different, why isn't Tucker in Toronto having a press conference? That's the question of the day. Because it doesn't make sense. He's not a Toronto Blue Jay yet. I agree with you. A lot of you guys, it's looking like Toronto, but hasn't that been that way for the last like 3-4 days? There's a reason why the Mets keep upping their offer. There's something going on that we don't know that the teams know. If the Blue Jays are willing to go to 10 years, they know Tucker might not want to come here or come there. But it's big question marks, right? We don't know. But he's not signed yet, and there's a reason for that. The long-term deal he supposedly is searching for is there on the table. So why hasn't he signed it? And then there were reports to come out that he's willing to take a short-term deal with high AAV. And here we are. So, like I said, I think the Blue Jays are in the driver's seat. But how long have they been in the driver's seat? They've been in the driver's seat for almost 4 or 5 days now. Tucker's still not a Blue Jay. So something's we don't know is going on. That's the only thing I can think of, because it doesn't make sense he hasn't signed with the Blue Jays yet. Like, he's trying really hard not to be a Blue Jay, in my opinion, right? Doesn't it seem like that? It seems like that to me. Hey, Wade, how you doing? Jay's fan, Canadian here. First time watching. In my opinion is I like your podcast and appreciate your opinions, man. Subscribe. I appreciate that. And Wade, if you're still here, what are you hearing? Because again, we're hearing it from the States. We don't know what local reporters got, the best information for you guys. I follow a couple of Toronto Blue Jays reporters, but there might be other ones that I don't even know of. Right? What are you hearing? Right? Say it in the chat if you don't mind, because I don't know. Like, it all seems like the Blue Jays have the upper hand, but they always had the upper hand in its negotiations with Kyle Tucker with other teams, because Kyle Tucker knows they're the only ones going long-term deal. Why isn't he signed? Is there something you're hearing on the Canadian end that are giving reasons why he hasn't signed yet? That is what I want to know. I wish we could find out. I mean, we might find out after he signs, but what are you guys hearing in Canada? Because I think that's important. I think that's really important to find out. So Wade, if you're still there, if you don't mind commenting again and give your reason or what you heard on the Canadian end, please do. Right? We'll have that conversation. But I do appreciate you subscribing to the channel, buddy. NYC cannot be positive being a Met fan. I've been saying that for a long time. Oh, JK, that would suck. We've had too many losing seasons in New York with these New York teams. It's so annoying. Last night, Knicks fans, had their heart jump a beat with Brunson's ankle. The Giants suck, even though they got Harbaugh, which is good. It's a step in the right direction. The Jets are, they're an XFL team, basically. It's the Mets suck last year. The Yankees aren't doing what the Yankees normally do. The Rangers suck. I don't know if there's Islander fans here, but the Islanders are doing good, but I don't care about the Islanders. But the Rangers suck. Like, my Cowboys aren't in the playoffs. Like, it's a lot of shit show, man. Need some winning for my teams. Yeah, well, it's supposed to, sure. The Yankees probably won't suck, right? They'll always find a way to make the playoffs. But you know what, though? The Orioles gotten better. The Red Sox gotten better. So it's not as easy as it usually is with the Yankees with the AL East. So, Cole's not going to be back until May. Rodon's not going to be back until maybe late May, early June. So you don't know how these guys are going to come back after injury, if they come back at all. So their rotation is in shambles for sure. There's a lot of question marks there. But again, the Yankees always find a way to be a over 500 team. So, and find a way to make the playoffs. Oh, the political talk. It finds its way in every nook and cranny, I tell you. Mikey, the new CBA should have a max 5-year contract. Yeah, that would be lovely. But you know what? The union's not going for it. Twitter is down. That means Tucker has signed and broke Twitter. Oh, that's great. Twitter is down, guys. Sorry. Like, I don't know who this girl is. Jordan. Who is she? I don't know who she is. She's from Toronto, Canada. Or Ontario, excuse me. Clicking on her link portfolio, she's some type of media presence. 50,000 subscribers or followers on X. She just said, Kyle Tucker, if you sign in Toronto, we will reopen 25 Tucker's Marketplace buffets in your honor across the GTA. I have no idea what that means. Obviously, it's a food spot, but I couldn't tell you where the hell that is. It's in Toronto. I know that. But again, even these media people for Toronto are getting desperate at this point. That's why I don't think it's a good sign, guys, that Tucker hasn't signed with the Blue Jays yet. And I think it's a good sign for the New York Mets. Ryan, no, not yet. Well, Charlie, I guess you can call them competent, but winning 83 games and fighting for a third wild card spot against the Cincinnati Reds isn't competent. That shouldn't be the case. This team should be comfortably in the playoffs. Like, I know baseball is a unique sport where 162 games, a lot can happen. But even with Steve Cohen, we've done more losing than winning. We haven't made the postseason more because he's owner. It's kind of the same. Be in the playoffs, not in the playoffs for 2 years. In the playoffs, not in the playoffs for 2 years. So, yeah. Of course that's going to happen, Red Horse. Come on. We all know that. We all know that's going to happen. I didn't say no. See, Mike, you didn't hear that. I did give him credit for 24. But let's not act like he set that team up to be successful. He didn't. He made those moves and signed those players because they were all tradable contracts. Of course, there's always luck involved. But he didn't set that team up to be a successful contender. He set that team up to give himself all the opportunity in the world to trade as many players on this team as possible. That was his goal. He said it himself before the season. This is a retool type of year. The players had other plans. So he gets credit because the players he brought in here performed, but he didn't do that because he knows they were going to perform. He did that because he knew they would be trade targets or they would have trade value if they performed well and the Mets weren't playing well. They would use them as trade bait. That's what it was. He gets credit for it because the guys he brought in actually performed. But his motive wasn't to win that year or to be contenders. When he said it himself, they're retooling this year. So his motivation wasn't to be big contender. It ultimately became that, but he set up that offseason to have many guys as possible being able to have tradable contracts. So the credit he gets because the guys played well. He pinpointed certain guys that if they did perform well, it's a good sign. But everything performed well. Lindor found a new light with the New York Mets, right? Vientos came alive. You know, there's a lot going involved, right? Iglesias obviously was a good move for Stearns, but his motive wasn't to be a contender that year. It was a retool. I'm just scrolling through the comments, guys. Dolo, yeah, it's a good possibility, right? No reason why Springer can't get involved and say, hey, Toronto's awesome. You know, the Springer that I thought the Mets should get over Nimmo, but you know, that is very much in the past. All right. Well, BBA, like I said, if we believe the Mike Puma report, and there's no reason for Mike Puma to lie, right? He doesn't, you know, tweet out every day about nonsense. When Mike Puma puts something out there, he believes it's true. And if we believe in that it's true, and if you guys haven't seen it, I'll tell you right now that Mike Puma is hearing that the Mets have offered more than 4 years on their contract offer. So if it's 5 for 250, great. Maybe that'll be enough. We'll see. We will see. Okay, wait. So you're saying Tucker's can't be using the Mets for leverage? Well, it's a strong possibility. But I mean, I don't know how much leverage there is though, because like if Tucker wants a long-term deal, he's already got it with the Blue Jays. So yeah, you could probably milk a couple more years, but that's a dangerous game to play. I mean, the Blue Jays seem like a desperate team, and they should be, considering the fact that they almost won the World Series last year by an inch. Yeah, I don't blame them. I do it if I'm them. Scott, if Mets lose out on Tucker, you think that they do anything good? Well, if I know David Stearns, and this will probably happen, I think Dolo said this earlier in the chat, that he'll probably pivot to Framber Valdez because, you know, he's got to save face. Because David Stearns, he's great at saving face, right? When the trade deadline was a disaster last year, he got on the mic 30 minutes later on SNY and talked about the prospects, the pitcher prospects, to get everybody excited. When what he should have done is bring up Nolan McLean in June instead of waiting until August. Because you would have had Nolan McLean for at least 4, 5, 6 more starts than you did when he brought him up in August. So I digress. So I don't know. Probably not. I think that's a huge loss by losing Tucker. It seems like the Mets are out on Bellinger. Maybe they'll pivot back. I hardly doubt that. But you know, if you're gonna go pivot back to Bellinger for 5 years, you might as well go a couple more years with Tucker and try to land them. So I just don't understand that. But yeah, I think they might just pivot to Valdez, which I think is stupid at that point. But that's what I think he would do. Okay, Justin. So I'm assuming you're in Toronto, or at least you're a Toronto Blue Jay fan. Or we aren't hearing anything different from you guys. Okay, so like I said, so many different reports, so many different opinions. Who knows what's true? Who knows what's not? Sure, that's a strong possibility, right? I'm going to assume when you give a long-term deal, you're not going to go extremely high AAV. I find it hard to believe they're going to get it up to $50 million a year. I mean, you're talking about Jesus Christ. I mean, let's say it's an 8-year deal. They're going to give him 8 years, 600 million, 450 million or something like that, whatever adds up to 50 million a year. I don't know. Yeah, New York. I know Rogers is a multi-billionaire, but Steve Cohen is too. All right, Angela, I appreciate that. The super chat. Robert, if they don't get Tucker, they shouldn't improve the staff. That would make John happy, who thinks we have the best rotation in baseball. Yeah. And it's funny how John doesn't show up during the season when he tries to, say that the rotation is great and they're not. Yeah, it's true. Like you don't get Tucker. I wouldn't try to improve this team outside at all. Use the prospects at this point. Don't give false hope to a fan base that knows the outcome. Like let's be honest. Getting Tucker is the start of what you should have done from jump. You get Tucker, great job. Now go get a top line starting pitcher. Now we have a conversation about, all right, now this team looks a hell of a lot different and a hell of a lot better than they did a couple of days ago. So, again, you sign Tucker, great. Move on to a top line starter. If you don't sign Tucker, don't waste your time with Luis Robert, or you can sign Bader or Hayes because it's only probably a 1-year deal. But don't sign Valdez. Don't get a top line starter. Let Brandon Sproul start in this rotation as well. Let the kids play, and let's see what they can do. And then you can really see if they're worth keeping or not worth keeping. But that is still yet to be determined. All right. And thank you for the super chat, by the way. Well, if he is trying to get 10 for 400, then I mean, again, it's been reported that the Blue Jays are willing to go 10 years. I mean, we don't know. See, this is the other thing too, though. Do we know the exact offer? Like, we know the Mets are at $50 million a year. We haven't heard what the Blue Jays are offering per year. What if they're offering less than 40, but they're given 8 years of $37 million? Is that the holdup? That he wants at least 40 and they're not willing to do it? Because again, there's still got to be something that we don't know. We don't know. That's the issue. That's what I'm trying to figure out, man. That's kind of like irking me right now. I really want to know what it is. Is it maybe their offer isn't $40 million per year? Maybe it's less than that, but the years are better than the Mets. And maybe that's why the Mets still have a chance. Maybe he wants it over $40 million a year. And the Blue Jays are like, no, we'll give you 10, but we're going to keep it at 38. You know what I'm saying? So that is why we don't really know the offer, at least the AAV for the Blue Jays. And they'll paint the better picture so we can understand it, but we don't know. We just know the Mets offer. And that is where we are right now. There goes the Islander fans. Just looking at the comments, guys. Come on, Randy. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's trying to get the player, right? All the fans are excited, trying to get the player. Yeah, explosive. I mean, he might be using the Mets for leverage, but again, I don't know. Is it possible they're using the Blue Jays for leverage for the Mets? If the Mets are continuing to up their offer, wouldn't you continue to go back to the Blue Jays and see if the Mets, jump at another year or so or more money? That's a strong possibility too. I know we're not used to, players using other teams to up the Mets offer and using another team for the Mets, but that's possible as well. Again, there's something going on that we don't know. We don't know the official numbers and years from the Blue Jays. I think if it's less than $40 million a year, I think that's the holdup. But if it's not the holdup and the money is close, but the years are much higher, then what's the holdup for Tucker signing with the Blue Jays? Is it the whole Canada thing? I don't know. I wish we had all the information so we can have a great idea on what the issue is of why he hasn't signed yet. Excuse me. And Vinny, thank you for the super sticker, buddy. I appreciate that. Excuse me. And Juan, I agree. These long-term deals never happen to work out. Excuse me. But when you sign these long-term deals as an organization, you know that going into it. But you're not thinking about the later years in that contract. You're hoping by signing that long-term deal, by getting a player, that within the first half of that contract, you'll win a World Series. The guy does great. That's what you hope. And that's what you have to wait and see. Right? It's always a gamble for sure. But let's say, I know this is, hypothetical, but let's say the Mets win a World Series over the next 3 years. Right? Yay, we win. Put the banner up, all that fun stuff. Lindor's contract is worth it. Soto's contract's already worth it. Right? Go back to when the Yankees won in 2009 and signing all those long-term deals, big money contracts. They won in 2009. They didn't win after that. But you know what? Sabatier is loved by fans. Why? Because they got that championship. The later years didn't matter. Yeah, you complained at that time during the later years of those contracts, but you get a World Series out of it, it doesn't hurt as much than when you didn't win. And now you got to deal with the latter part of the contracts. That's when it sucks. Tucker is on a plane heading to New York. Well, wouldn't that be nice? Robert, I like that comment. Should there be a free agent signing deadline? Yes. But again, nothing can be done unless the union agrees to it. I'd love for there to be a deadline. I don't think a hard deadline is a problem. I think it should be January 1st, where everybody should sign. Because then you can have that month in January for maybe more trades, right? Your roster a little bit better. You can make those trades in January. But again, if the union doesn't agree to it, it's not happening. That's why we're all thinking it's going to be a strike after the 2026 season. But I'd love for there to be a deadline. You know why? Because maybe the winter meetings would be a lot more fun. Maybe the first month and a half of the offseason would be exciting. And we're not talking about big-time players still being free agents or still on the trade market a month before pitchers and catchers. That would be nice. That would be nice. How come no one is... Hold on. My cat jumped on the bed. Oh, okay. Alrighty. Yeah. So why aren't they talking about Bellinger? I don't think they want to give 5 years or more to Bellinger. They'd rather give it to Tucker, in my opinion. Because if it's true, if they're willing to go a 5th year on Tucker, they believe he's the better player, which he is, and they believe in him more. I think Bellinger, once the Yankees came out with that offer, the Mets weren't going there. So that's about it when it comes to Bellinger. And I don't think if the Mets lose out on Tucker, they're going to pivot to Bellinger. I don't think that's going to happen. Sports Illustrated feels like he's going to Toronto. Well, good for Sports Illustrated. David, yeah, the Mets do need pitching more. I agree. But you know what? Kyle Tucker won't hurt this lineup. You could still do both. Like, it shouldn't hamper us from getting starting pitching. All right, guys. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to spend another half hour on the show, on the Kyle Tucker Watch. If nothing happens, we're going to call it a stream. And if anything breaks, I'll pop on with a new stream for the breaking news of Kyle Tucker signing with whatever team. So 2:30, we'll end the stream. Was hoping to do around 2.5 hours, maybe 3. But 2.5 hours seems like a good point, right? We're getting repetitive here, right? We were hoping that something happens around this time. Again, if anything happens after the stream, I'll pop back on with the breaking news, and we'll talk about where he signed. Maybe it'll be a happy stream. Maybe it'll be a pissed off stream. But there will be a breaking news stream depending on where he signs. So another 25 minutes or so, and then we'll call it a stream. And I do appreciate everybody being here on YouTube and on X. Solid 1,500 people in the stream constantly on YouTube and on X. We're having around 300, 400, 500 on YouTube constantly. Another 500, 600 on X. And again, guys, if you are on X watching this, if you don't mind heading over to the channel, subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that as well. So another 25 minutes to get all your comments in, your questions and all that. And hopefully something happens during the next 25 minutes. If not, I'll see you when the news breaks, guys, and we'll talk about it then. Yeah, Joe. Thank you. Why be positive when there's no positive for this organization? Let's be honest. You can call me negative all you want, but you can't say I'm wrong. How am I wrong? What has David Stuns done here that has been positive? Again, I said I gave him credit in 2024, but let's not act like his motivation was to put on a winning contending team in 24. He said he was retooling. He set that team up with tradable contracts. And if you want to say that's not luck, then I don't know what to tell you. But he got credit for it. So do we blame him for 2025 or that doesn't count? It doesn't count? The disaster of a trade deadline, the lack of an offseason that he should have done better. Is that his fault? Is that not his fault? Because it is. Are we giving him credit for a great offseason this year? Because it's been terrible. All right. So it's not about being negative. I don't want to be negative. But let's not act like this team gives us so much to be positive about, including David Stearns. So, yeah, guess what? I'm going to be negative because that's what they're providing. They're providing negative results. I'm not going to have negative results and I'm going to give you positive content. That is me lying to you. You want me to lie? I'll lie to you guys. You want me to be smiling, talking, hey, great job. Man, I can't wait for old-ass Marcus Semien to play second base. I can't wait for Jorge Polanco to play first base where he never played before. You want me to be like that? I'd be like that. But I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you how I feel. And I'm pissed off, if you haven't noticed. Because I don't think David Stearns has done even an average job here. I think he's done a terrible job. I also link Steve Cohen for allowing this to happen. But don't act like the negativity is just negative for me to just be negative. This team results is why I'm negative. And if you don't want to be negative, that's you. You do what you want to do. You want to be Mr. Positive on a team that gave you no positivity and have lacked the championship for 40 years? Be my guest. But I'm not going to spill bullshit and lie to you guys and give you positive content when they don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. Not right now. Do something positive and we'll talk positive here. That's it. It's just that simple. You don't have to like it, but it's a fact. Explosive. I already said that. I think his family has a lot to do with it, especially his wife, who is pregnant. No, but of course. But you know what? There is a phone, right? We have phones nowadays. Cell phone. You can call Steve Cohen and say, "Hey, listen, we might be able to get Tucker on a short-term deal, but it's going to take a really high AAV." Yeah, Cohen doesn't need to be in the room for that, but he believes he needs to be in the room now for whatever reason. But I don't know how that looks good on David Stearns. When do you hear owners go into negotiations like Steve Cohen has done since owning this team? He did it with Scherzer, did it with Verlander, did it every year. He did it with the Lindor extension when they traded for him. He's done it every year when it came to big names. You don't hear owners do that. And it's constantly being reported that he's very much involved in a lot of big moves. That's not normal. And again, it's not just about David Stearns. Steve Cohen has done this prior to David Stearns, but he's done it a lot with David Stearns. That there's something to that as well. Well, Red Horse, I thought it was a good job getting the relievers at the deadline, but it wasn't enough. You got relievers. You needed 3 relievers because your starters were a disaster and destroyed your bullpen. And what did he do? Not get a starter. So he half-assed another deadline. He got the relievers that we needed. Great. But you also needed a starting pitcher. And you didn't do that. And ultimately, what killed this team? Starting pitching. So who was to blame for that? You want to blame Frankie Montas, who we all know sucks? Griffin Cannon wasn't moving the needle. That's on David Stearns. He allowed that rotation to become a disaster because they weren't good pitchers. I was the first one to bring up, and if you follow my channel, you know I said I did not want to sign Sean Manaea because I knew he was going to get hurt. I felt it in my core. This guy changed his delivery, his mechanics, his arm angle at the rightful age of what, 32? You really think after all the years he pitched, throwing the same way, and he drastically changes everything he ever known about pitching, that his body wasn't going to break down on that? Come on. Negative, right? Negative results. Got to bring some negative content, right? That's just the way of life. The Mets provide a lot of negative results. You're getting negative content. Well, Scott, that's what I'm thinking too, because I don't see why Tucker's not signing that long-term deal with the Blue Jays, man. I don't understand it. Like, that's what he's looking for, right? It's got to be a low AAV or much lower AAV than the Mets because it's a $15 million year difference each year. Now, I know it might be 3, 4, 5 more years more than the Mets, but these guys are stuck on AAV as well. So I think it's the AAV for this long-term deal. It has to be. Has to be. Now, again, the Blue Jays might just give him what he wants at this point. I don't know. But we're still here talking, and he's not signed yet. So I don't know. I just don't know. Out of all the young guys, Rob, who would you keep and who would you get rid of? Well, I think you could start with the infield prospects, right? Because where are you playing them all? I said this from the beginning. I think you need to make a decision on at least 3 of them. And I think you got to use them for proven talent. Trade those assets for proven talent. But again, it makes no sense to trade them if you're going to use these prospects. But again, does anybody know the plan of the New York Mets? Because we're in January 15th, a month away from pitchers and catchers, and nobody has any idea what the Mets' plan is. One day it's Kyle Tucker, the next day it's top prospects. Nobody knows the plan. Nobody has any idea of what the direction or the plan is for this offseason at all. We still don't know, and it's January 15th. It's mind-boggling to me that the plan is not even figured out, because nobody knows it. Even the reporters, when they talk, they have no idea. It's crazy. How can you be this far into the offseason? You're closer to spring training than you are the World Series in 2025. Yet, we don't know the direction of this team. Where are they going? Are they trying to be contenders? Well, right now they look like they're trying to get proven talent. But 3 weeks ago, all we heard was top prospects filling these holes. So what is it? Still don't know. Right now, I guess we're trying to contend because we're in on Kyle Tucker. If we don't get Kyle Tucker, we're just going to go back to the prospect propaganda? Sure. Why not? Stoney, it was the Blue Jays, it was the Mets, and the Yankees, I think, were the finalists. The Dodgers were kind of in it, but wasn't really that serious. I think it was the Blue Jays, Mets, and the Yankees. All right, Nick. Who could turn down $50 million AAV? Sign a man. I agree, Nick. I agree. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. I agree, Nick. 100%. Yeah, Nick. That's what we're doing. We're refreshing our screens. I'm, hoping for something positive for us because we need it. That would be nice. But nothing. Nothing yet. Nothing yet. And John Heyman ranked the most likely landing spot for Kyle Tucker was Mets, Dodgers, Blue Jays. I don't know why he put the Blue Jays third. But again, it's just, reading the little hints here that like something with the Blue Jays contract, or maybe his wife don't want to go to Canada, or something is stopping him from going to Toronto. And hopefully we figure it out once he signs of why it either took so long or he didn't end up in Toronto. Well, Vinny, if it is only an opt-out, if they have the opt-out in the second year and he wants it in the first year, I don't think that's going to stop David Stearns or Steve Cohen from pulling the trigger. I think if you got to do it, you do it to get the guy. If there's an opt-out that is stopping them from signing Kyle Tucker, then they need their heads examined. Seriously. You can't let him lose. You can't lose out on Kyle Tucker because of an opt-out. My God, that would be so stupid. If the guy wants to come here and it's because of an opt-out and you're not willing to do it, then Jesus, like, what are we doing then? It has nothing to do with years, nothing to do with money. It has to do with an opt-out. Give him the opt-out. Why not? And that would suck if that's the case, Vinny. And no, I don't think it's all Steve Cohen, but come on. This is Steve Cohen's baby at this point. To be honest, I feel like that's the case. I do. I think if you're gonna see, if we happen to see a 5 years pop up or 6 years pop up for Tucker, oh, it's Steve Cohen, no doubt. But I'll let some Met fans give David Stearns credit because you love to support the guy that's done nothing for this organization. Nothing. The same nonsense we dealt with, he's still provided. The same garbage. So, yeah. Andrew, yep. That's a good point. The Philly fan here. Yeah. Great point. If Tucker goes to Toronto, the Phillies do have a great chance of getting Bo Bichette. That's one less team that's in on Bo Bichette. So, again, here you go, guys. For anybody who doesn't want Tucker, Philly fan is just blowing it up right now and saying, Tucker goes to Toronto, Bo Bichette's probably a Philly. So the Mets don't get Tucker, the Phillies get better, and the Mets continue to be worse. So you want to talk positive? There you go. There's your positivity. But it's not for the Mets. See, when I talk about the trickle-down effect and how not getting players can not just hurt your organization or your team or your roster, it could help other teams you have to play against. That would be a freaking disaster if Tucker goes to Toronto and the Phillies sign Bo Bichette. Then what the Mets do? You might as well just throw all your prospects in there and rebuild because you ain't winning. Not saying that Bo Bichette is the end-all be-all, but the Phillies right now are better than the Mets. The Braves are better than the Mets right now. And the Phillies could get better while the Mets just lost out on Tucker. Bo Bichette's a Philly. And where do the Mets going? They're not probably going to sign Bellinger. So it's a circle of life with the New York Mets. Lose out, other teams in your division get better, other teams in your league get better, and some Met fans act like positive is the only thing that matters when results matter. That would just be the icing on the cake for the offseason. The Braves are quietly getting better because they're getting healthier. They signed a couple of bullpen pieces. They're always dangerous. The Phillies won the division. They're still a top team. And the Mets are in oblivion because they're in the middle. That's where they are. They're not very good. They could be okay. Like, that's been the running joke with the New York Mets. They're not the LOL Mets because of all this positive energy that they're spilling out from their organization. They've been a losing franchise consistently. And until that changes, they're still the LOL Mets. And it's going to continue to be that until further notice. Well, Reynolds, that could be the holdup, right? The Mets probably don't want to give up the draft picks and give that opt-out. And if that's if it's holding that, again, we're worried about draft picks here, guys, again. Like, Mike, come on. Like, are you trying to win or are you seriously just trying to throw shit at the wall and hoping it sticks? Because try to win. That opt-out shouldn't matter. I understand that you don't want to give the draft pick up if the opt-out's there in the first year. That kind of sucks. But come on. Come on. It's just, that would be annoying. Muscle, no, I'm going to end the stream at 2:30. And if the breaking news happens and he signs, I'll pop back on a new stream for the breaking news wherever he signs. Yeah, so 2:30, a couple minutes. We'll call it a quit. And when he signs or if he signs today, we'll do the breaking news stream there. All right, JP. So let's just say 10 years for $30 million a year, 10 years, $300 million. Dodgers offering 3 for 45. Mets are offering 3 or 4 for $50 million. So the Mets technically have the best AAV offer. That could be the holdup. That's what I'm saying. That's what I think it is. I think the AAV on the Blue Jays end is low. Maybe if they go up to $40 million a year, which maybe they don't want to do. But if they don't, this is why I don't think he signed yet. I think it's the AAV. I think the AAV is much lower than we think per year from the Toronto Blue Jays offer. Again, we don't know. But again, if the AAV was anywhere near the Dodgers or the Mets, I think he'd be a Blue Jay if it's already a long-term deal. I think it's the AAV that's stopping Tucker from signing with the Blue Jays and why this process is still going on with the Tucker watch. All right, I'm just catching up on the comments, guys. Heyman, the Yankees have checked in on Valdez. Wonderful. Let them go. Let Valdez go off the board too. So the Mets left holding a bag. They seem to like to do that, right? Excuse me. Well, Red Horse, I don't think the Mets leaked this stuff out. I'd be shocked if they did. I think it was Tucker's agent that tried to put leverage on the Blue Jays to up their offer. Because we know the Mets are upping their offer. We have no idea what the Blue Jays are doing. We know they have a long-term deal on the table. We haven't heard of anything with them actually upping their offer. We know they would go more years, but again, it seems like the holdup could be the AAV that's not high enough for Kyle Tucker, in my opinion. So I think the leaks came from the agent just to get the Blue Jays a little nervous to up their AAV offer, but we don't know. We don't know. I find it hard to believe the Mets did it, but maybe they wanted to put pressure on Tucker for whatever reason. Because, again, the Mets can't wait around here. You can't prolong this for another couple of days. Because if you do, what if Bellinger signs with the Yankees? What if Valdez signs somewhere else? Like, you're losing out on talent here very quickly. Like, you can't wait too long. You got to make a decision at that point. Either you say, this is our final offer, take it or leave it, or just move on and pivot to another player. Because that's what you have to do. You can't wait too long. You're going to find yourself in a bad spot. All right, let's see what else we got. Let's finish up with a couple more comments. And then I'll end the stream, guys. And then if the breaking news happens and he signs, I'll pop up on a new stream and we'll talk about exactly that. So John Heyman on WFAN, there is inertia in talks between Tucker and the Mets. I would expect the deal done within 24 hours. Now, with the Mets, because that would be interesting. Now, John Heyman just said that on WFAN. He was on with I'm Evan and Tiki, I'm assuming. Well, if that's the case, then great. But John Heyman actually has been a little bit more right lately than he's with the arson judge thing. So we'll see. Like I said, it would be great. I'd like him to sign today, but we'll see, guys. So if that's legit and John Heyman said that on WFAN, and again, I listen to WFAN all day. Obviously, I'm not listening to it now, but if John Heyman said it and Mothman, longtime subscriber of the channel, if you heard that and he said that, great. Then hopefully we're getting this deal done and we're ready to go. And we're talking about Tucker being a New York Met. All right, hold on. Alan, I do agree about the desperation there. But if I'm the Mets, I wouldn't even be desperate at all. You lose out on Tucker. Don't waste your time signing other people. Just use these prospects. I think that's what should be done. Yeah, Mothman. I hope he does sign soon. Dolo, John Heyman does say that a lot. Yeah, it will be a masterclass them bidding against themselves, right? But hey, you want the player, go get the player. Yeah, well, Mothman, again, Mike Puma did say that he's hearing that the Mets did up their offer a fifth year. Again, he's the only one that said that. I don't know. Again, Mike Puma's not a bad reporter, right? But he doesn't tweet out stuff like that out of nowhere. So let's say it is a fifth year. Maybe that's the icing on the cake that Tucker wants. And we're talking about 5 years, $250 million. At that point, who cares? Muscle, you said just put on WFN wholesale deal by 6 p.m. today. I'm assuming that's Craig Carton because right now it's 2 o'clock and it's the Craig Carton show with Chris McMonagle. So if that's the case, great. 6 o'clock, I'll be up, hopefully. Robert, I mean, that would kind of make sense, but it doesn't seem like they're doing that. All right, what's Carton? Okay. Yeah, Dolo, but you know what, though? Carton is a clown, but he knows a lot of people that are in the know, and, like, he's a clown. Like, I don't like Carton at all, but he's got sources. I don't know how he has sources, but he has them. So it's possible. We'll see. Listen, if by 6 p.m. he's not signed, he's wrong, but we will see. All right, guys. So 2.5 hours of a Kyle Tucker Watch Party show right here on the channel and on X. You guys are great. Stand over 1,500 strong in the stream this entire time. I do appreciate it. But if Kyle Tucker signs with the Mets, the Blue Jays, the Dodgers, or a mystery team, I will be live with the breaking news. Hopefully, it's the Mets and we're positive. If not, I can assure you I'll be pissed off and negative. So with that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to day 2 of the Kyle Tucker Watch Party right here on the channel and on X. I'll see you, hopefully, very soon with breaking news of Kyle Tucker signing, hopefully, with the New York Mets, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. I probably will see you soon. And let's go Mets, guys. See you shortly, guys. Let's go Mets.
Rob on the mic, spitting truth from the heights. Queens unite under stadium lights. Bright nights, 7 train rides. Dreams born in the real hum. Brooklyn to Queens, yeah, we all about that outcome. This our time, this our cheer. Mets talk loud, bring the hype, make it clear. From the boroughs to the field, this our year. Queens in the house, let the world hear. From Flushing Meadows, echoes bounce off the bat. Rob calls, take the mic, snaps like a thunderclap. Home runs over bridges, no gaps in the story. Mets rise, reclaiming the glory. 7 the city, blue and